Hey y'all, coaching fight, coaching fight network. Didn't see me. What how y'all doing? The show is a little bit different. Um, this is one of the first times I'm relying on my conscience to actually show instead of drawing lots. It's just anyway. Been thinking about this all day during the fall feast day episode here. When it is, what it is, and all. Three. We try to do this every year. In the feast days before we start trying to get some higher level understandings, which this year has already proven to be insightful. In some of the stuff that we've learned. As we wait for some people to come in, I do have to you guys know about a correction. You notice that that video that we had up, took it down because it had errors in it. We was what I call chat GPT. We were AI'd, artificial intelligence, was able to lead us astray. And the reason why is the warning that I always give everybody about the artificial intelligence is that if you have not already read the documents, if you don't already know the truth, it will lead you astray. It will lie to you. You have to know the truth already. Already. You have to know the truth already before you even get in there and do. I mean, if you trying to learn something like planting or crocheting or, something like that, sure, that's one thing. But when you're talking about our Father and his scripture, it's too tainted. It's got too much of man's hands in it. And what you're talking about is a computer program. Artificial intelligence is a computer program made up of ones and zeros. It's written in machine code once you get back that far. I don't really know all of those languages like Fortran and all of those languages. What is it? Java, HTML. No, I learned ones and zeros, machine code, and so that's all it is. And the thing about it, it's on a push pull or a push system, no matter what, which means that whatever they put in, those ones and zeros that they put into that computer system is the way that they're going to come out. And the problem with that is that you have too much interpretation of the scripture in the system. You have what everybody's learned in seminary school, what everybody's learned in Hebrew school, what everybody's learned over there in the Muslim schools, and all of the other schools around the world have inputted their human understanding. And so the artificial intelligence is leaning on the human understanding. And anybody who, studied the Bible for a while understands the problem with that. The computer is leaning on the human understanding. It would be different if it was the other way around. If it was truly artificial intelligence, they would have been able to create the thing and then let it go off on its own. It would have found the Bible on its own, and it would have read it, and then we would have got a proper understanding, or at least a better understanding. But that's not the case. By the time artificial intelligence was created back in the 90s, one of the first things they started doing would have been to start putting in the doctrine, what they wanted us to hear and know, to keep us programmed. Because if we make it through this show here, Leviticus 23, you'll understand why that was important, to keep this world the way it is. It would have broken down really quickly and went back to the way it's supposed to be, which there's no problem with the way the world is supposed to be, at least as far as we're concerned. But there are others who have a problem with that. So let's see. We got 5 people looking, nobody liking. That's all right though. We don't do it for the likes. We do it for the people out there that want to know the truth. Fight. This is a war, and you know we have to look out for those people who are being caught up in the war. You don't have to. Those who are watching it on TV, and something that they want to see. That ain't what they're doing over there. At least we hope not. Putting on a show when we turn on the news. The first responders are waiting till the cameras appear before they start getting on their jobs. We hope that ain't the case. The phone a little bit farther, maybe clipping. I got it too close. But anyway, we're looking here at Leviticus 23 because we're talking about the feast days. Let's go ahead and start in verse 26. It says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying," we're going to take these slow because, like I said, all we really want to do is look at what this. So first thing we learn here is that this Lord, not necessarily Elohim, because that's Michael, Gabriel, all of the angels, and everybody, the Messiah, even your grandmother who was passed on is in the spirit world. She's part of the Elohim. She's a spirit being if she's still there. But when this case right here, when we see the word Lord, is talking about the Almighty, the Most High. And that's important to understand. That's important to understand. Right? Because we want to know who is commanding this, who is telling us to do this. Well, it's our spiritual Father is who it is. Our Creator is who this is. He's telling Moshe, I think it is in Hebrew, but he's telling him and giving him the commandments here in the book of Leviticus, which is the 3rd book of the Bible, number 3. The book of Leviticus is the book that all of the kings and Levites are supposed to read at least once a week. Once a week. If you're a Levite, you're supposed to be reading this book every week. You are a king, same. It's where you get the information to be able to command, I guess is the proper word, to teach, to lead, I guess. Anyway, definitely not rule, because once we get out of these commandments, then we fall under the rules of man and start being slaves and such. So we gotta back up. We are on the 10th day. Sorry y'all. We gotta come all the way back to verse 23, which says the same thing. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, but verse 24 says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, the 1st day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation." Now this book right here, this verse right here, goes all the way back to the 90s for me, about the late 90s. And I started getting understandings about this and what it says that people are still struggling with today. And so that's why we're going to take these pretty slow. Notice he says children of Israel. He ain't talking to all of those mockers. He's not talking to them. That's why they're mocking, is because they're a little bit jealous. He's talking to the children of Israel. The children of Israel is a very defined group. Now, no, he didn't say Israel. That is another defined group that is different. I mean, if we to pull up a Venn diagram, there are some Israelis who are of the children of Israel. There's some of them that fits within that group. But the children of Israel is a very specific group, defined in the book of life. I'm trying to remember how this scripture here defines it. The children of Israel are the children of Jacob, the children of the 12. And so he's really only talking to them. But you remember who else was on the planet at the time? The whole world was full of people. Japan and Hong Kong was rocking and rolling back in this time. Remember, they were the ancient wisdom. They had been smart for a long time. So they had been rolling about this time. They were just over in the east somewhere, except the ones that left in Pharaoh. So my point is that he's not talking to everybody then, and he's not talking to everybody now. And so that's why you have so much mockery, so much debate, so much we don't need to do this going on in the world, when essentially he's, not talking to the majority of the people that's walking around. 8 billion people almost walking around. He's only talking to about 3 million. He may be talking about a few more than that. Strugglers, if you can include, families and all of that. He may be talking about more than that. If you talk about families. But those families were included in the 2 million back then. There was only 600,000 men of war. But there was between 2 and 3 million people present back when Moses was receiving these commands. And so he says, in the 7th month, on the first day of the month. Now, this is important to understand, because like we was talking about the Jewish thing, there is a such thing called a Jewish calendar. The problem with it is that it is Jewish. It is not Jew. It is not a Jew calendar. I know somebody's offended by me saying that, but here, the semantics. That's the right word to use. It is not a Jew calendar. It is a Jewish calendar, meaning it's like the Jewish calendar. That's a problem. That's a problem. Now, I don't mean to pick on nobody, but to say a Jewish calendar means that it's like the calendar. Now, if I come over here and I say this book right here, I know this don't make sense. I'm making up an analogy right now, but I'll use the one I thought about earlier. You don't go up and say that a dog is doggish. I wouldn't go to my dog and say my dog is being doggish. That don't make sense. Now, I may say that cat is acting like a dog. I may say the cat is doggish. But I can only say the cat is doggish is because the cat is not a dog. If the cat were a dog, it just wouldn't make sense. I'd sound real stupid saying that. It's like walking up to a boy and saying you being boyish. It don't make sense, right? You would only talk to a girl and say that the girl was being boyish because she ain't a boy. Now you would say that a boy and a girl was being mannish because ain't neither one of them a man. You wouldn't dare walk up to, unless you was being facetious, you wouldn't walk up to a grown man and say you being mannish. Maybe his wife would, but again, she's playing around. It just don't make sense. She's being silly. She's being silly. And so that's what we need to understand when it comes to this calendar. It is not our calendar. It is not an Enoch calendar. It is not an Enochian calendar. It's not even a biblical calendar. It's a man-made calendar. It's actually, if you learn, that it's actually based on the same Babylonian stuff. All of the dates of calendars are based on. It's not an Enoch calendar. It's not based on the sun, the moons, and the stars. You say, well, what's the problem with that? Well, first of all, it's going to end up causing you to be off on your days. Even this day here, if you go by the Jewish calendar, you're going to celebrate a day early. A day early. Why? Because it is the Jewish calendar. It is not an Enochian calendar. An Enochian calendar, the Enoch calendar, requires the appearance of the moon. It has to appear whether you see it or not. It has to be visible. It has to be visible from the naked eye. You can't be looking, trying to see a void in the sky where a star is supposed to be and saying, yep, there's the moon right there. No, that don't work. You have to be able to actually see it. And then the thing about it, that always comes on the 30th, or I should say, that always comes on the first day of the month, of the lunation. You say, well, how does that work? You go back to the 0% moon, which will be on the 21st, if I'm not mistaken, of September. You have the 0% moon. Let me grab my calendar so I don't be mistaken. Matter of fact, I'll take y'all over here. I said we weren't going to go to any other books, but I believe we can go see the calendar. Yeah, we need to see the calendar. That's what we're talking about. I ain't got the calendar created. Need to get the calendar created. We can go see the old one. Go on to coachinthefight.shop and looking for the calendar. Someone of y'all bought a clock off of eBay. We're gonna have to start. We're working on it. I hope you do know that it takes to build these clocks by hand. Christian does. He also works on his website. To the bottom of the website. Coachinthefight.shop. See, this is why I didn't want to go anywhere else. I want to stay on that one page. Scroll all the way down to the bottom. That's where I always start. The way the page is, you best start from the bottom. And we could go, we could see the summer 2025 because the fall 2025 is not, we haven't created it yet. But when we scroll down to the bottom of here, we see that there is a new moon at 1954, on the 21st. Alright. So that right there, guys, is the Jewish part of the Jewish calendar. One of the Jewish parts of the Jewish calendar is that's what they call the new moon. That's why they're having their new moon celebration on the 21st. If you were to Google when is Rosh Hashanah, they're going to tell you September the 21st because it is 0% moon. But as we said earlier, the moon has to appear. So we're predicting, and the thing about the numbers say so too, that on the 22nd will be, I don't know, at least the end of the 22nd will be day 30. And when we wake up in the morning, I'm sorry, the 21st is actually day 30. I don't know. We better wait. Wait. Let me see. I didn't actually plan on showing the calendar. But what we have here, and you know me, I always say we have to wait on the new moon, and that's why I don't want to speak so emphatically. I don't want to say it so matter-of-factly before we actually see the appearance of the moon there. But we're predicting, I'll say it that way, we're predicting that it will be on September the 23rd. September the 22nd. And then we'll have the memorial blowing of trumpets on the 23rd. That's the day of the memorial blowing of trumpets on the 23rd. The other thing about the Jewish calendar is that's not recognized as the day of remembrance on a Jewish calendar. They have a different day of remembrance dedicated to remembrance of the Holocaust back there in Europe. But the Enochian calendar has 4 days of remembrance, and they come at the beginning of every season. And so that's part of what's going on here. Why is saying Sabbath and the Holy Convocation? We do those every season. At the beginning of spring, at the beginning of fall, winter, and summer, is it a Sabbath and a Holy Convocation. The Holy Convocation part means that we are inviting our family in. It's a big deal. An unholy convocation would be something like a Christmas party or Easter dinner. That's an unholy convocation. So a holy convocation would be one that's separated to our Father's feast days. A pagan convocation may be the 4th of July barbecue. Well, this is a holy convocation, so you get the same idea. This is what you're doing. You're inviting especially your family members in, just like you would do back in the day when we had the big Thanksgiving dinner. That was another convocation. That was another unholy convocation. That was probably the most unholy of them all. It was probably the most unholy of them all. But we ain't gonna get into that. Y'all should appreciate the fact that I'm willing to speak bluntly to you. The reason why the other guy doesn't is because he knows that if he upsets you, that you're not going to send your tithes money in anymore, and his family's going to suffer. Well, I'm ready to take that hit for you, for me, and my family. One could say, I could actually try to argue that we're supposed to do so every season, but this is saying that we should blow the trumpets. We're blowing the trumpets on this time. Now, the commandment doesn't necessarily say to blow them, but there isn't a commandment in all of the Bible that says you necessarily have to blow a trumpet. The commandment is to hear it, to actually hear one. So somebody in a remote apartment somewhere by them lonesome will be searching the YouTube trying to hear somebody blow a shofar, because that's what the commandment is, to hear it, not necessarily to blow it, but to hear it. And we are learning that they have spiritual connotations, but like I said, we're going to cover that in other books and other times. We're talking about what it says here. So let's go on to verse 25. Let's see. Let's make sure this is going okay. 7 people looking, 5 people liking. But these are made to stay up from now on, so people will get to see them as we go. I should get to where I can see comments. Verse 25 says, "Ye shall do no silver work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord." So here are the rules. This is how we worship, y'all. This is what hit me the hardest back in the 90s when I first read this, this is what our fathers were. An offering made, offering fire. We can understand the rest part. Well, most of us can. Some of us need to we need to put one and one together to understand that you cannot have a spiritual connection with our Father at the same moment that you are hammering out widgets down there at work. If you down there punching out the machine, doing your work, you're not going to be able to keep the, I can't even keep the rhythm going. You can't do both. You can't serve God and mammon. So our Father asks us on these particular days, and it's not very many. It's not many at all. It turns out to be probably less than 10 or 12. You start counting new moon days, then it's, maybe get up to about 20 days total out of the year that he asks us to actually rest. Or Sabbath days. That takes us up to about 70 days out of the year that he asks us to actually sit down and rest. Make ourselves available to hear from him. We don't go to church. That's not part of our worship. I mean, people like me go to church to help do part of the Great Commission. We had that responsibility. So we go in and put in that work, just like we make videos or whatever we do. But this is worship. Resting. Number one. And then on this particular, but that's every Sabbath day, right? We do that every Sabbath day and new moon day. But this one, he's saying to have a holy convocation. Now, a Sabbath day is a holy convocation as well. But this one, he's saying to make an offering made by fire. We don't do that on the Sabbath days because that's a barbecue. That's actually cooking food. That's cooking meat, not burning meat as the post-exilic way of doing things. When the worship took on a Babylonian type flavor, where instead of a bunch of men sitting around eating meat and talking about the Lord, drinking wine, eating bread, you have everybody going down and watching the higher ups do it. That started in Babylon, where we didn't actually get to participate anymore Remember on Passover, the Messiah, him and his buddy was out there doing their own thing while they was at the temple, because it was more about, by that time, it was more about the showmanship of it. Like I said, the post-exilic way of doing things. That's why they said the second temple was hopelessly corrupt, is because it had taken on a worldly flavor already after Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the first temple. And they started building the second temple because somebody other than the children of Israel had something to do with that temple. They had influences that they shouldn't have had. And one of the influences that they had was defiling the feast days. Messed them up totally. Not doing it right, forgetting things that we're supposed to do. Not doing them. Like you remember back then in Hezekiah, the reason why he had to have a feast in the second month, even though he had just rediscovered the law altogether, he could, in the first month, he couldn't actually have a feast because the priests and the Levites didn't do their proper cleansing. Well, that was pre-exilic. And so we were even struggling with remembering to do these things even before the Babylonians' days. But then after the Babylonians' days, we just forgot them. Just flat out. Didn't know them no more. At least that way. Changed it all up and made it more like what it is today. Where people don't even understand, why would we burn up animals? Well, the word olah means smoke. They was told to smoke the meat, not burn the meat. That's a translation error. They were told to smoke it, not burn it. They were told to cut it up into its pieces. They was told, first of all, to dispatch it in a way that was both humane and clean. It actually removed all of the blood from the animal. It actually removes all of it. Like you're told on the Passover lamb, the reason why they're told to dispatch it in that way is because the heart pumps all of the blood out, even from its toes. It squeezes and squeeze that blood even from its lower extremities and pull it all the way up, trying to get it to the brain. But since there is no connection anymore, the animal loses all blood whatsoever. Yeah. And then after that, they're told to have where the parts of the animal that are considered bad for us, like the visceral fat or the fat, the caliber of the liver, the Bible calls it, the King James, visceral fat, the kidneys, and the fat on the rump, I believe it is, or all of the fat. We don't try to eat any of it, but that part is considered bad for us, and so that part is put on the altar. What's funny is that, well, not funny, but what comes out when you first do it is the kidneys are sweet. The fat makes it all burn together, and then we're required to have wood, certain kinds of wood. And then after that, they cut the animal up into pieces, and then they put the animal on the grill, on the fire, and told to roast it. Now, roasting it gets the rest of the blood out. If there's any left, if there's anything left, for instance, if you didn't do it right, let's say, for instance, you shot a deer or something like that, and you don't get to go through the proper cleansing thing, actually putting it on that fire, you can boil it out too, but putting it on that fire and raising the temperature up to 100 degrees thereabout will cause the fat to start to denature, and that causes it to push all of the blood out of the meat. That's why a lot of people won't eat rare meat. It's because well, there is something to that, because if you cook it long enough, all of the blood will come out. The problem with that type of cooking, and we're going to move on, is that the blood could be still in the pan if you're not careful. On the grill, it drops down into the fire, but if you have it in a pan, you end up eating it. So that's a no-no. Eating blood is a no-no. It's one of the first commandments, even before Moses. We were told never to eat blood. Eat anything you want. You can eat an alligator. Just don't eat its blood. You shall do no servile work therein. So again, this is a rest. But notice it says servile work. When we get to Atonement Day, it's going to say no work. Here it's saying a servile work. What's the difference? Servile work involves pretty much working for somebody else. Hard labor, like we said, punching out widgets. But other things could be considered work, like washing dishes and cleaning the house and cooking food can be considered work. But is it necessarily servile work? If you're getting paid to do so, yes, it absolutely is. But if you're doing it for yourself, one could argue, no, that's not. And so that's why you have servile work. It's defined, what it's basically saying is, don't go to Mr. Charlie. Take that day off. You're supposed to have that day off. If you're working for Mr. Charlie, you need to tell him you need to take that day off. Like I said, we're predicting the 23rd. For those who want to go ahead and get ahead of it, you want to take the 23rd off unless you work on a night shift. Then you want to start on the 22nd. And you want to have a barbecue on the... That's what the offering made by fire. That's why we're having such a long conversation about this. Many people don't understand this, is that all it's really talking about is a good old-fashioned cookout. Yeah, you can put your vegetables on the grill. You can... The thing about it, you have a fire, your family, and you have... That's what an offering made by fire is. Like I said, this is how we worship. It's changed over the years, we learn. Babylonianized to the point where people are making mockery of such, but we need to get back to the plain old truth of the matter. All we doing is having a cookout, same as they do on many of their holidays. Same. That's where they got the idea from. That's where they got the idea from. But that's the first day. On about the evening of the 20th, if you're not blowing your trumpet already, I will be blowing mine already. I'm going to start blowing mine on the 21st. You should be hearing somebody blow by the 23rd. You should be hearing it blow by the 23rd. Then you want to have a... Literally go out there and make you a fire and cook you something on there, even if it's a piece of corn or a hot dog weenie or something. Especially for you guys that are real early in the because what ends up happening is our Father sees and recognizes that effort, and then he makes every year a little bit better than the previous year. And then one year you're actually going to have some lambs to on yourself to put on there. And one day we'll have some cows to put on there. But it's to be proportionate to the people. When we need that amount of meat for that many people, then we'll have it. And that's the thing. Offering is bread. The first thing is, or flour, just plain flour. You don't, and essentially that's when you don't have enough bread. You don't have enough bread to make flour. You done tried to grow some wheat, and you really didn't bread. You can put the flour there and make a little pancake out of it, or little pancake with oil. Oil bread pancake. I've done that before. On the fire. This thing is the fire. The barbecue is the essence of the aroma of that wood rising. That's what it's talking about when we get to this next feast day. We'll go on to it. Talking about Atonement Day. You see right here in verse 26 it says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, Also on the 10th day of the 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation unto you, and ye shall afflict your souls and offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. Now here's why it's necessary to do this, because of the learning. We're told in the book of Daniel that learning will increase in the end times. That's why we need not be paying attention to some ancient authors, human beings, some connected to religions that we don't necessarily agree with. We don't need to be listening to them way back hundreds of years ago. Why? Because knowledge increases in the end times. And so you have people who are locked in to that ancient knowledge. And I ain't even going to call it knowledge, ancient understandings. Somebody from a Catholic church understood back in the 1300s and teaching the world and read dogmatically as if the Bible said it. And it will say it as if the Bible declared it. Some monk or somebody who thunk it up. And it has been debunked and deproven, but that doesn't matter. As long as the world still has a consensus on what the agreement is, they're going to go along with that. They're going to go along with what the agreement is, even though we know it's wrong, even though they know it's wrong. They're going to say, but everybody believes it. That's gaslighting. They're gaslighting the Bible. Saying nobody believes that. Editor, edit that out, editor. On the 10th day of the 7th month, there's, we got to take this slow because this is very misunderstood. Very, very, very. And we have been doing it absolutely wrong. I promise you. If you're any way connected to the Jewish calendar, like me, I've been, thinking that they were doing it right. Yeah, you've been doing it wrong. Real wrong. But that's okay. Our Father doesn't hold anything against us. We're not offending him. We're messing things up for ourselves. That we don't hear the trumpet blow, that don't hurt him. If we don't have our barbecue, that does not offend him at all. It takes something away from us. We didn't do our worship. We didn't get what we were supposed to get out of the deal. So you have the 10th day, you have the Day of Atonement. It shall be a holy convocation unto you. So now again, we have our family members here. All that we can get here, our immediate family, is a shutdown. Everybody's taking off work. We're closing the gates unless we have to let somebody into the convocation because it's one of them days. You don't show up at the gate talking about, hey, go to Walmart and go shopping or auction. It ain't that day. It's a holy day, which means that it's separated. That's all holy means, is separated, it's set apart. And then it's a convocation, meaning we're getting together. Anyway. It says, and ye shall afflict your souls and offer an offering made by fire. Okay? Now, the tricky part. These parts right here, I dare say, that has been manipulated over the time. Whether it's been done so intentionally or through flat out ignorance, doesn't really matter, but we're going to have to really learn this. We're going to have to learn, first of all, that it doesn't say fast at all. It says afflict. Fast at all, it says afflict. What's the difference? Fasting is a personal thing for you and your body. Even pagans fast. Even secular people fast. Athletes fast. Hunters fast. Why would a hunter fast? Just like that lion out there who hasn't had a long time, his senses will be heightened. And so he's doing that intentionally so he can be out in the woods paying attention that much more harder. And so he's fasting. In the Bible, there's only 2 times or a few times that people went on a food fast. There was Esther and maybe one of my point is that it wasn't that often, and it was for very specific things. Something was going on in the whole community, like in Esther, and they wanted everybody in the whole nation of Israel to fast. Or I should say they wanted the whole nation to afflict their soul. They wanted the whole nation to afflict themselves. But how do you call on the whole nation to afflict yourself? First of all, we have to understand what does afflict mean. Afflict means to torture, hurt, hamper. Humble is another biblical word, to humble your spirit, to humble your soul during this time. What does food have to do with that? Nothing. Food can't affect your soul. Food can't hurt your soul. If food was really connected to our souls like that, we would all either starve to death or be completely fat. Be all completely obese. It's not a connection like that. He's saying afflict our soul. Afflict, and what does that mean? To actually do something that humbles our soul. And we find out that, and say we're going to go over other books, but I can reference them. We find out over in Isaiah 58 what it means to afflict our soul. He even tells us that fasting from food was a bad idea and never commanded. We wasn't supposed to do it. Bad derogatory word. And then he goes on to define what a real fast is. Looking out for our brother, feeding the hungry. Making sure that we don't commit any sins whatsoever. Ourselves up. Being of a repentant heart. Now this is all have an offering made by fire unto the Lord. So here another barbecue on Atonement Day. You say, well, how does that make sense? How are we afflicting? So I'm going to be fasting and we're having a cookout or eating the food. Well, first of all, well, we ain't got to that part yet. Let's go on. We'll see. It says it down here when we get down a little bit further. So we'll take it verse by verse. Make sure we clean this up. And on the 10th day of the 7th month. So this is on the 10th day of the month. We're going to find that it's going to mention the 9th day too. And that's the part that we have to learn. Stuttering and stammering, the hesitation element here. Ye shall be the day of atonement, shall do the. And so the 10th is actually the day of atonement. The punctuation in this verse is actually throwing us off. And I can say that because in Hebrew there is no punctuation. There's no spaces either. They're in pre-exilic Hebrew. I ain't talking about modern day Hebrew. They got dots and stuff all over the place. But I'm talking about the way it was supposed to be Hebrew, pre-exilic Hebrew, before man changed the Hebrew. No commas, periods, semicolons. There wasn't even spaces. There was not even spaces. That's what they mean by parse it out. You literally had to go in and find the words. And you could do it if we put all the English together. We could go into Word right now and take out all. You'd still be able to read it. You'd still be able to parse the words out. You'd miss some of them. Like a word that like somebody could say truth hat, and you could mistake it and think it was saying true that. You would make those kind of errors, but that you had to parse the words out. And so what man has done now, not only did he translate this for us, and we appreciate that, but he took the time to go ahead and add all of these punctuation marks where he thought they should be. Fragmentizing the sentences. I love the King James Version. It's my roots. That's where I go back. That's why we're looking at the King James Version now. But it is what it is. Original language was Hebrew. This is not Hebrew. This is English. And it has a lot of punctuation marks. The punctuation marks are allowing us to combine all of this. What he's saying is on the 10th day shall be an atonement. The 10th day is the day of an atonement. You should have a whole. But now in this part down here where he's talking about afflict your soul, you can't do both. You can't have an offering made by fire, a holy convocation, and afflict your soul unless you're going to fast. Get everybody together and have a no food fast. Up. Pre-exilic time. The only problem with it is they didn't want to get straightened up. They didn't have a zeal to get back to the truth as we do today. That's why knowledge is increasing in the end times, because people were just doing whatever. They didn't think it was important. They didn't take it seriously. They wasn't receiving the blessings, which gives them justification for not taking it seriously. And that lack of zeal, a lack of diligence, Satan has had his way of creeping in. Like I said, the devil is a liar, and he had his way of getting in and actually changing the truth around. So that's why we're taking these real slow. Really need to get these. So you have a holy convocation, atonement, afflicting your souls, offering made by verse. But it's not all in the same day. It's just right here telling us what all of this, what's all going to go on during this time. It says, and ye shall do no work in that same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before the Lord your God. So this is talking about the 10th. This is absolutely 100% the 10th day. The verse before encompassed 2 days. The 9th and the 10th we're going to find out. But now he's getting down to the specifics. That's how we should understand this. That other verse was told us everything. Now he's breaking it into the details. No work. Remember, there's a Sabbath day. We're going to find out it's a Sabbath day. So on Atonement Day, it's no work. And notice he didn't say servile work. Why? Because it is a Sabbath day. There is no washing dishes on Sabbath day. There is no cooking on Sabbath day. There is no sweeping of the floor on Sabbath day. That ain't servile work. But you don't do it on the Sabbath day because it is no work. I have a hard time to get my kids to do anything around here. And there's a lot of times, if anything that involves getting off the cot to them is work. If it involves them having to get up off the bed, is work. Answer the telephone, I don't care what it is work. Go answer the door, sheep out. Man, and sheep better not get ran over in the street, and he be on his own. Because the Sabbath day is no work. No work, period. But this right here, and so when we were talking about the first day of the month, it didn't say that. Now, why? Why? Because we had just went through a Sabbath day. We had just had a Sabbath day. Usually 1 or 2 days earlier. Usually 2 days earlier. So there's not necessarily a time for another Sabbath day. And the Sabbath days are getting ready to get reset. But anyway, and plus, there's a holy convocation going on. But now in this verse, we're going to make an atonement for you before the Lord. So on the 10th day is the day we get atonement. Now what does it say? We're doing no work on that day. And this will also, this ain't the day that we'll make the offering made by fire. Notice it don't say that this is the day we will actually make the offering or do the part of the 10th day. Why? You can't. You had to do that before. You had to cook the meat the day before. Remember, there's no cooking on the Sabbath day. So there's no cooking on Atonement Day. So if you're going to have a barbecue, you didn't have to have that meat cooked already. But we're used to that. We have to have the meat cooked every Sabbath day. That's part of it. Preparation. This is 2 days for people that's, this. And everybody really need to get it. That's why I'm taking it slow. Now, by this time, the affliction has already been done. We're going to learn here in this book. It says it right here in this chapter. The affliction has already been done. And so now that we're taking a Sabbath day, we're eating the food as the result of the offering made by fire. The offering made by fire is the actual cooking of the food. Like I said, smelling of the barbecue. That's the offering made by fire. But now that it's been done, now we're about to eat the spoil, eat the food, but resulted from our work. We didn't did the work. The worship part was done back there doing the barbecue. And now what are we going to do with all of this food? We're going to eat it on Atonement Day during the Sabbath day. Well, my point is that it had whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. Now here's a key verse. Notice that he says you already had to have been afflicted. Now, the book of Didache, I can reference that too, chapter 8. It talks about fasting on the 6th day of the week before every Sabbath day. It uses the word fast, but again, Isaiah explains to us what a fast is. And Isaiah 58 explains what a real fast is. We're told to have this type of affliction every week. And so we're used to that. And so maybe that's not why, or maybe that's why it's not making it explicit that the affliction is done on the 9th day yet. But it's making it clear that the fasting has already been done. By the time you get to the atonement, notice it says, he who ain't already afflicted. And you can't afflict on a Sabbath day. That's illegal. The Sabbath day is supposed to be about joy. And nowhere did it tell us different. No, we've already put in the work of affliction. And so now that we're on atonement, we can take a proper rest day. A proper rest day with the food that we need, because we cannot fast on the Sabbath day. It's illegal to fast on the Sabbath day. Never, never, never fast on a Sabbath day. The Sabbath day is a feast day. But some of us, our affliction, will have to be cooking all that meat. At least they're going to say it. Somebody going to say it. They're going to be sitting around talking, oh man, what did you do? Oh, I went over there and I helped Aunt Janie, and I helped the uncle, what's the name? And somebody else going to say, what did you do? Man, I was here cooking all day. For all y'all can have something to eat. Might not, I don't know if that's going to get them off, but somebody going to do it. I promise you, somebody going to say that. Because that's what they was doing all day. Especially if they, talk about cooking a whole lamb or something like that. That's 6 to 8 hours. Time, not prep time. So it's all day. And whatsoever soul it be that does any, did I finish it out? Whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. Now here's the thing. So now, by us not understanding this and not doing a proper affliction, we have been getting cut off. That's what humanity is right now. If you look across the world, and why the world is in rejection of our Father's word, it's right, all of his principles, it's because we have been cut off, separated, cut off. They can't get back if they want to get back, except for this period here. Atonement Day, for all of the people who have ever been cut off, all it would take is for them to go through a proper atonement and we get cut back in. That's what the memorial blowing of trumpets is about. That's why you have to hear the trumpet. That's why I say you ain't got to go to some fancy, you need to work out a few notes, because it's actually touching your spirit and the spirit to what's actually being prepared for them for Atonement Day. And so by having this information misunderstood, all of us cut off. Every one of us is cut off. The whole world is doing wrong. The whole world is cut off. Why? Because we didn't afflict on the 9th. We're supposed to afflict on the 9th and Sabbath on the rest, and Sabbath on the 10th. It says it right here. We just ain't got down to the verse yet. But whatsoever be that doeth any work in that same day, the same soul will I destroy from among his people. Now, the soul is about to get destroyed. It's one thing to get cut off because you can get cut back in. All that takes is like baptism, spiritual baths, communion, somebody putting some oil on you. I mean, there's a lot of ways to get back in. Just pray real hard. He'll let you back in. Well, destroyed? You might have to be reborn. You might have to get born again. Literally born again. You may be out of here. It may take you out of here. And no, this has not been something that we've been held accountable for in the past. That's why every atonement day people haven't died necessarily. Yes, they've been getting cut off. But and the soul may be in a state of reprobation or something like that. But we do have coming up too, and we're all the cost. But anyway, we'll talk about that in other books. Gad the seer, we'll have to bring that out and speak on that. Whatsoever soul that doeth any work on that day. This is the 10th. This is the 10th. You have to take the day off on the 10th. Your food was already prepared the day before. So it is a Sabbath day of rest. Don't go nowhere. Don't pump water. Don't make a fire. No sticks to make a fire. Obey all the rules of a proper Sabbath day. Because Atonement Day sounds like the most serious of the Sabbath day. For not doing this right. And so this is why we have to learn this. Verse 31. Ye shall do work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. But who he talking to? The children of Israel. Hopefully he's talking to you. Hopefully you ain't on here just to mock. Hopefully you're on here trying to learn what thus says Lord in the script. Hopefully you're the children of Israel. But it don't matter. I mean, the mockers help out too. He said, but this is a statute throughout your generations forever. And so, in order to take this away from us, first of all, in the previous, he's confused us, got us fasting instead of afflicting or doing the Sabbath day. We ain't doing neither one. It says afflicting Sabbath, you're going to say, but we fasting doing it. But if we made that far, then they say, we ain't got to do it no more. That's antiquated, that's old. And so I ask them, when does forever stop? It says throughout your generations. Throughout your generations. Forever. When does forever stop? These covenants will be in effect until this planet goes up. Like I was saying, the earth will be destroyed before the laws will. The earth will come to a whole complete end. It will burn up and be gone before the laws ever will. The laws will still be in effect. Just remember, burning like a rock out in space by his lonesome. No inhabitations is a rock. But his laws are still going to be adhered by his people, the children of Israel. We'll just be unified then, though. And whatsoever soul it be that doeth any work in that same day, that soul will I destroy from among his people. Ye shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your dwellings. In all your dwellings too now. To Jerusalem to do any of these feast days. So you got to remember, guys, before David, there was no Jerusalem tabernacle or anything like that. It did not. There was no temple, and so people didn't make the trek down there to worship. Like we said, before the Babylonians' time, before we started letting man rule over us, I should say, it was all about barbecues down there with our brothers. But now that we start letting man rule over us, first thing he want to start doing is building temples and stuff to start unifying the worship, unifying the worship. That didn't exist before David. Thousands of years humans were here before unifying the worship by building a temple down there in Jerusalem. I ain't blaming, just saying that's just the fact. And so the point is that before somebody tell you you ain't got no temple, we go to Jerusalem, you got to understand they're speaking from a Babylonian post-exilic mind frame that says absolutely you have to have a temple because you got to have a bunch of Pharisees down there slaughtering animals in front of your face and burning them up for you to see. That's Babylonian rule. That's on this channel. We are intentionally studying everything: the language, the word, the script. We read Jeff Benner. We read the original hieroglyphs when it comes to the Hebrew letters. We're going all the way back. So, verse 32 says, "It shall be a Sabbath of rest, and ye shall afflict your souls. In the 9th day of the month at evening, from evening to evening, shall ye celebrate your Sabbath." Now, here again, how they flip this up. Here comes the introduction of the 9th day. But look for a minute, if you can see it. How does that even fit in there with those punctuations? But look, how all I got to do is take that one comma out. Let me read it without that comma. "And ye shall afflict your souls in the 9th day of the month at even, from even to even." See how a comma do that to us? That comma did it to us. That comma took away everything. Once it took away our understanding, and we're not afflicting our soul on the 9th day of the month, running into the 10th day of the month, talking about getting atonement, we ain't getting nothing but cut off because we didn't afflict on the right day. Even if we did afflict, we afflict the 10th, which is the day we're supposed to have been resting, taking a Sabbath day. You cannot afflict and have a Sabbath day on the thing. It's like mourning and having a party at the same time. You can't mourn and have a party at the same time. And that's what's making sense. I'm learning in this video, that's why they actually abstain from food, because what else are you going to do when you got everybody together except say we ain't going to eat? And so they're going to make everybody sad, especially the kids. The kids going to get sad first. I can't eat yet, mama. Nope. Why? Because the king said so. So this is a Sabbath of rest. These are 2 days, guys. I hope you appreciate this. That's why you support channels like these, so we can find and dig out this information for us. These is 2 days. You have atonement, the Sabbath day. It shall be a Sabbath day of rest unto you. But then it says, "And ye shall afflict your souls in the 9th day of even, from even unto even." So it's talking about the 10th up there being a Sabbath, but it's telling us that we should have already afflicted our souls on the 9th. From Day of Atonement, 10 days after the moon is sighted, 23rd, 22nd, night evening of the 22nd. 10 days later, we'll have a Sabbath with an atonement, but by then we should have already completed the affliction. The affliction is done on the 9th. The 9th, from the evening of the 9th until the evening of the 9th, there's an affliction. What does that involve? That could, if you look at the shepherd of Hermas, and we not, if you look at the shepherd of Hermas, it says, "Eat bread and water and calculate the cost that it would have otherwise cost you to feed you and or your family, and then give that food, give that money away to a widow, a homeless person, or a Levi. And take that money and give it away." What it do for you guys is it's going to humble you. I've done it. I try to do everything the Bible say. And it actually literally does humble you when you go put that money in that widow's hand. And she gives her thank yous and all of that. Shit, that widow know how to say thank you, and it's going to touch your heart in a way that it's going to let you know that people out here are hurting. People out here really need people, and she may not need the money. I remember one time I sent my grandma some money one time. Boy, I got the best thank you letter I never got in my life. Grandmas just know how to do it. But the thing about it is it touches your heart. We think we're going to be like a truckload of turkeys. And we're just going to be sitting there bawling, you know. But when them people come out that really need food and you see how really bad people are, you're not going to feel like a king at all. It's going to humble you. It's going to make you feel low. And so that's what that day is about. You know, that's what every day before the Sabbath day is about. Every day before the Sabbath day, we have that on our mind and we're doing such things. Doing stuff for the neighbors, giving, doing this, doing that. Charity work on the Sabbath day. It also involves your own reflection too. Remember, this is a day of repentance on the 9th. It's a day of repentance. So this is a day that you're thinking of wrongs that you have done as well. Like it says in Isaiah 58, evil. Well, so you of course you ain't going to do no evil on that day because you know that you're under observation. If you read Gad the seer, you know you've been examined. And so of course you're going to be on your best behavior. You're not going to do nothing. You're not going to steal nothing on that day. But what about the stuff you've already done? We should be contemplating. As part of the affliction is we're sitting there thinking about how bad of people we are. How bad, especially for the ones who just getting into this walk. You got a lot to talk about. Or think about, I should say. You ain't confessing to a human. You're confessing to our Father in heaven on how bad you done his feast days. How bad you done messed up his Sabbath days. Messed up the other commandments of the Bible. Through your ignorance or whatever. That's what that time is about on the 9th. Showing a proper remorse for what you've done. Because on the 10th, you want to get forgiven of it. And so what happens when you don't do this? If you're on the 9th, still making mistakes, and then, no, you're not going to get an atonement. It's not going to work for you. You did not afflict. You're going to get cut off. You were supposed to afflict already. On the 9th. Then after you afflict, from even to evening, this is what this verse is saying. You're going to have your Sabbath, but on the 9th, you're going to start afflicting. From the 9th evening to the 10th evening, you're going to be in affliction. And then on the 10th evening, you're going to start your Sabbath of rest. That's when you're going to celebrate your Sabbath. I hope this is making sense, y'all. I hope this is making sense. I appreciate all the support you guys have given this channel over the years, many, many years. But I promise you, this is what you've been supporting. This is why you've supported this channel. This is why you come to this channel. This stuff has been hidden. It is hidden. Don't many people around the world know this. What I'm telling you now. There's a few people that heard it last year and they read it and a few years. We've been talking about it for a few years now. So then there's a few people who grasped that, you know, they didn't take much. They read the verse for themselves and they grasped the world on the day that we're supposed to be having a Sabbath. And they're not afflicting at all. But the thing is, watch what happens when we do. Beauty of all of the commandments, y'all. One thing that I learned is, yeah, we're in a bad state while we're breaking the commandments, but once we start doing right, things start to go better. You know, it's like ailments and diseases sin is, and once we remove that sin, it's like removing, you know, something that's making us sick. We do better. And so you can imagine if and when we actually start doing this right, how it's going to be. We're actually going to do Atonement Day for the first time ever. Some of us are 50 years old and we're going to get atonement right for the first time in our life because we're going to afflict on the 9th and then have a proper Sabbath on the 10th. That's what it's saying. But let's go on. Verse 33 says, And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and saying, The 15th day of the 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles. For 7. This is why we're doing all of this, y'all. If you go back to Exodus, and we're not, if you go back to the Exodus 23, when it starts talking about the statutes, it only names 3. And so far, tabernacles is only the one that's named out of all that we've talked about. We've talked about days of repentance. We've talked about atonement days. We've talked about blowing of the trumpet days and holy convocation days. And but anyway, this one right here, this one is on the 15th day of the month. So this is why we do all of this. All of the days that we've talked about are leading up to this. But like I was trying to say, in the covenant, there's only 3 feast days mentioned: Tabernacles, Pentecost, and unleavened bread. First fruits is not part of the covenant. The memorial. The only ones there are the Feast of Weeks. Some call it Pentecost, Tabernacle, and Passover. So combining into one, but it's actually, I'm sorry. I said Passover. It's actually unleavened bread. Some people call unleavened bread Passover, but it's not. Passover is a separate day. The feast is called unleavened bread. Well, that's what we call it. That's what it is in English. It's a week-long feast, just like Tabernacles is. But this is on the first, your spirit was awoken by hearing the trumpet. On the 9th, you afflicted your soul, so that on the 10th, you can get an atonement, so that here on the 15th, you can actually go into the tabernacle. Again, those who didn't do that, what about the ones who tabernacle day and say, hey, I'm going to crawl into a tent, having not done an atonement? And, you know, we can imagine they're not going to have a proper tabernacles either. Suffering from this. We're getting credit for what we already said. Imagine what it will be like when we actually start doing it right, or right her. Speaking to the children of Israel, on the 15th day of the 7th month, you shall have the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord. This is a 7-day feast. Feast of Tabernacles, 7 days, 7 whole days. Now, some of these days you're going to have to take off work, but not all 7 days. We'll find out. It is a 7-day long feast, but you can go to work down at the JOB, punching out widgets, Mr. Charlie, because there's only certain days that we're commanded not to go to work. You have a holy convocation. You shall work therein. So again, here is the I'm just remembering now that it's actually broken up into. I'm remembering, it's been a long time since I did this class, about a year, I guess. And right now, notice how it says that it is no servile work. But later on, we're going to find out that it's a Sabbath day for us. And notice, even the calendar, we know that it's a Sabbath day anyway. Well, he's going to say down in a lower verse that it's actually a Sabbath day. But right here, he's actually speaking more of an entry level, I can say. Entry level for those of us who don't know what a proper Sabbath day is, or haven't been keeping the Sabbath day at all. We don't keep the Sabbath day, don't know what the Sabbath day is. He's saying for it to be a no servile work day, giving them some room for error, kind of. And he's going to give them, we notice that it is a bunch of differences here. The other guy's going to have to sleep in booths. But we're going to notice, but he doesn't tell them to actually sleep in a tent here for this first group. We'll see it split up in another. 8th day shall be a holy convocation, and ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly, and ye shall do no servile work therein. The 8th day and to take off work. They're Sabbath days anyway. Keep the Enoch calendar. They're Sabbath days anyway. To the walk. Understand it on the 15th day of the month, on the 23rd day of the month. Let's see, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. On the 20th, you don't have to take off. You don't have to take off work. The reason why I got the 22nd day of the month is the 7th month. The 22nd day of the 7th month is a Sabbath day every time. Hesitation, a little thought there that would have got it edited out in the other video is the fact that there is an 8-day celebration, which is the 23rd. I mean, there's a day on the 23rd, not necessarily the 8th, but anyway. So 7 days you say offering made by fire. So 7 days you barbecuing. 7 days you're barbecuing. 7 days you're cooking something. All week long. That's why it's a feast. 7 and notice how those who try to tell us that an offering made by fire is something else. That it's just about burning up whole animals. Take a whole cow down there and burn it up to a crisp, The only time you really do that, guys, is for the that red heifer that they're talking about. That one actually gets burned all the way up to ashes. That red heifer that they keep talking about. That's to make holy water. I guess they think they need a whole lot of holy water. But the rest of the animals, they were eaten. You go back to Leviticus chapter 1, which we're not. You go back to Leviticus chapter 1, it defines what an offering made by fire is. And it just goes through how to cook a lamb, how to cook a goat, how to cook a cow, how to cook a bird. It talks about everything but how to cook a fish. And it's all offering made by fire. Barbecues. That's why it's important to read the whole book and definitely not let people tell you what to say. So this is 7 days of barbecuing. So a whole week. That's why, like I said, that's the feast. There's people who call this a feast week, but they don't be feasting at all. They don't be eating nothing. Going through the whole way, may be reading the Bible, but no. The thing about it, our belly is probably the closest thing to our soul that we can affect, other than our eyes. And so it's hard to have a holy convocation when you're sitting there hungry. Especially in the early days when we got it backwards. We're sitting there having big Sunday dinners, and then come the feast days, we're sitting there, don't know what to eat, and everything is backwards. Big pagan, everybody know what to do on the pagan holiday, but then when it comes to the feast day, everybody forget. That's how it is early on. And it's a really, and so we have to learn real quick that these feast days are about eating good. Sabbath days too, eating good. Supposed to eat good on the Sabbath day, good on these feast days. If we sit there and fast on the Sabbath day, we're gonna be enough to be hungry. No, our 1,000 years of rest, plentiful. So we make sure that on his days, the 7th day of the week, we make sure that they are joyous and plentiful, intentional. We do it now, and taking advantage of his promises that he will do it for us later. On the 8th day shall be a holy convocation, and you shall have an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It shall be a solemn assembly. Serious deal. This is a very big deal. We're not going to jump all over the. This is the time when we get our. This is the time when we get our protections from diseases and pandemics. A lot goes on during this. A lot of stuff we don't know about. If you remember back there in the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, during the Feast of Tabernacles, the apostles and with Enoch and Elijah, the two witnesses, There's a lot that goes on during these tabernacling periods. That's why they was trying to build a tabernacle. If you remember the story, they said, we would like to build a tabernacle for you guys. It was during the Feast of Tabernacles. It was during the Feast of Tabernacles. There's a lot going on. And so my point is that we have to do these proper preparations. And just jump out and fall out into a tent talking about we here. We have to do all of this stuff we need to do beforehand, going all the way back to the first day of the month. We shall do no servile work on that 8th day. No servile work. Now, here comes the switch right here. Now, we finished talking about the 15th day. But notice we're going to come back to it. Like I said earlier, there's 2 different sets of rules for different people. This is part of the covenant. But it's going to be the entry to the covenant. For me, it was the entry to the covenant. Like I tell you guys, I have been reading this Bible since 1995. But it wasn't until 2014 that I actually kept tabernacles for the first time. And it was after that that I actually figured out or understood what the covenant was at all. I was like most people. I thought the laws was all of the Old Testament. Can't eat this, got to knock people in the head for that. I thought everything there was part of the law. But it was only after I started keeping the feast days correctly that he put it on my heart, my understanding, even my channel, that the law is Exodus chapter 20, 21, 22, and 23 only. That's it. That's the covenant. That is the covenant. Everything else is just living parables of what they did with the covenant. But that is it. We're leading up to it and everything they did afterwards. That's all it is. It's those 4 chapters. That's why, in other books, they talk about how on the Feast of Memorial Blowing of Trumpets, they started reading the law. They started reading the law, and then even during the feast, other people read the law every day. Like they read the law every day of the feast days. These are the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim, made by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering, a meat offering, a sacrifice, and a drink offering, everything upon his day. So these are the offerings. When you get to this part of the chapter, you're going to talk about the Sabbath day, Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Pentecost. He done ran through the whole deal. Closing it out. The light is closing it out. It's finished. These are the feasts. This is when you're supposed to make an offering. This is when you're supposed to do a burnt offering, an offering made by fire. This is when you're supposed to have a meat offering. You're supposed to do a sacrifice. We're all told right here in this. You don't see a lot of us going to church a lot of times, or having big church buildings, or doing a whole lot of stuff that other people in other religions go. A lot of times you can't. That's why a lot of times we go unnoticed. Y'all don't even know we in the world. Only way y'all know we in the world, y'all look for our tassels. And how many of y'all know to look for that? I've only had 2 people in the whole world that have actually said something about recognizing. One was at the airport. I think about that all the time. Wow. Well, just about back in the early, not in the early 2000, but it was long back when the world was going through this change. All worried about the airports and all of that, and there I was in the airport with my tassels on, and 2 people came up and questioned me about it. And they sat behind me on the airplane. They sat behind me, both of them, male and a female, Caucasian, sat behind me on the same little small Cessna plane that I was leaving. Yeah, so I think about that all the time. They saw my tassels. But that's only happened once. And I've only seen about 2 other people with tassels on since I've been around. So there's not many of us. There's not many of children of Israel in the world. And the thing about it, even when y'all see us, y'all don't recognize us because y'all don't recognize our form of worship. We resting and have barbecues. Yep, that's how we worship. That's how we serve our Lord. Resting and having barbecues. Do a few good deeds every once in a while. We pray a lot. We pray a whole lot, but you're not going to see that. So y'all don't even know we in the world. But anyway, 38. Besides the Sabbaths of the Lord, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides all your freewill offerings, which ye give unto the Lord. Now see, here's some other stuff we can do. Notice right here, he's saying a free will offering. A free will offering is an offering made by fire, as well, except the only difference is you don't have to wait for a feast day, and you don't have to use a perfect animal. You can have blemishes. You know, in other words, you can just have a barbecue anytime you want, and as long as you do it right, as long as you follow the precautions talked about in this book. He tells you in the first chapter how to do all of this right. And as long as you go through the proper steps, you'll get credit for it. And it talks about, and then the other stuff, the vows and the all talked about in other books. We're not going to go in those. But 39, he's back talking about the 15th. I thought we was finished. But now he says, and ye also on the 15th of the 7th month, ye shall have gathered in fruit. Let me see. Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruit of the land, ye shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. Now notice the difference. You got two different rules here for two different kinds of people. It's like a progression. You know, when we all start off, we're in the apartment building somewhere working for Mr. Charlie. And we got to do the best that we can. Some people be on the tents, they be on the trampolines, they be taking tabernacles out in the car, the backyard. People just making the best that they can. But notice right here, it's saying now you're reaping the fruit of the land. Now you're actually getting some of these lambs and fruit and stuff. So you didn't actually progress a little bit. And so now it's not just a day that you can do what you want, talking about some no servile work. Nope. Now it's a whole Sabbath day. Talking about the first day, 15th, and the last day, that 22nd. Sabbath days of rest. And so what my point is, that wasn't up there earlier. But the thing is, like I tell people every year, don't backslide. Don't think that you've been sleeping in a tent all of these years and now all of a sudden you're about to stop. You're about to go backwards. You're about to do what they call backsliding. That up there seems like it's for entry level. Who's just coming in. This is what they're gonna do the first few years. But now down here we already know what a Sabbath day is. So it's a little bit different. Verse 40 says, and ye shall take on the first day the boughs of the goodly tree, and ye shall take you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook, and ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. Now, again, notice this wasn't up there before. They ain't saying nothing about no tree branches. We don't want to do all them feast days. He ain't saying nothing about no tree branches. My point is that, we should be doing this too. Don't make the mistake that I made. I read it in 2014 and understood that I was supposed to sleep in a tent during that whole weekend. I did. In 2015, we had bought this land that I live on now. We call it the Hillbilly Homestead. Kingdom of Heaven is at Hand Ministries. And no fruit was being produced that year. Like now, if I go outside, I'm going to trip over pecans. I'm going to trip over all kinds of food out there that's just naturally growing on this growing. But back then, I took special note that it wasn't nothing to eat. We was hungry too. We didn't have a whole lot of money. We had spent all the money on the house. And we had no food, no nothing. And so I realized and thought that the land was not giving me a harvest. I didn't have a harvest. In other words, I didn't understand what my harvest was. And so I did not sleep in a booth that year. And so I backslid that year. And the blessings that I had received earlier from keeping the commandment right went away when I didn't do it correctly the next year. I called my brother. I told him the worst year of my life. Tree fell on my truck. All kinds of stuff just happened that year. Whereas before it was a blessing after blessing after blessing from 2014 to 2015. But then from 2015 to 2016, it was a whole mess. It was terrible. And why? Because one year, for the first year in 2014, I slept in a tent and got all of those blessings. Man, I thought I was invincible. I was like, nothing could stop me now. And then in 2015, I lost all of that. But then in 2016, praise our Father in heaven, we're able to atone and get back. You know, that's the beauty of it. You know, as long as we got a repentant heart, we get back everything plus the education. So we're better off than we started out. Better off anyway. So now we got these goodly bowls. But notice these goodly bowls is talked about over in the book of Revelation. In the book of Revelation, it talks about, in chapter 14, when it talks about the 144,000 and the multitude that no man can number. Oh, I think, no, over in chapter 7, both of them, chapter 4. I can't remember which one is which, but in one, they have palm branches in their hands. Why do they have palm branches in their hands? It's because they are keeping the Feast of Tabernacles. That's important to understand for people who trying to go to the kingdom of heaven. They're trying to be part of that number. That that everybody want to be counted in that number. Well, notice that the people counted in the number have been keeping tabernacles. They've been keeping tabernacles. Everybody who will be counted in that number will be keeping tabernacles. The 144,000, they're the ones that's going to teach us about the laws and the covenants and how to do them right. And we, because we want to obey the Lord, we're going to follow and do what they say. And then we all going to be standing there together at the feast day. At the feast day together. And then over in the other book, it talks about having our garments washed. Or no, I should say over in the other chapter of the book of Revelation. It talks about how, I think it's chapter 7, talks about how the 144,000 had their garments washed in the blood of the Lamb. Well, that's Passover. That's Passover. They're doing Passover. They're doing and teaching Passover. And then the rest of us, we're going to be allowed to go over into the kingdom of heaven because we are keeping the feast days and the Sabbath day. It's what everything the covenant say. Like I said, I hope y'all appreciate y'all and speaking straight up, but somebody got to do it. I don't mind being the only one. I don't mind being the only one. I know that there are others, but you know what I mean. While the rest of the world will tell you what you want to hear, we got plenty of that we can go to. Plenty of people that will tell us what we want to hear. Understanding that as soon as they stop, they're going to lose their whole congregation. And on the first day, you should take goodly boughs from the trees, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and the willows of the brook. So, good tree. But look how, if you're living in an apartment, you won't necessarily be able to do this. You don't have any trees on legally. I mean, even the ones down at the public park, you might not be able to grab and snatch branches off of them. But here at the Hillary Homestead, I already got a plan. This right here seems like pruning, like fall pruning. Like every year we need to go out here and prune this peach tree anyway. Well, I got a plan for that peach tree come this tabernacles. We're going to prune real good. And then we're going to go to another one and prune it real good too. And we're going to walk around, we're going to wave the branches. Feed them to the sheep this year. Usually we store them up. Nuh-uh. We're going to feed them to the sheep because tomorrow we got to get some brand new ones. We're going to trim every tree around here. Like, that's what all of the feast days are about. It's teaching us how to take care of our land. I just learned, me and the boys and Stacey, we just learned the other day about growing of the sheep. We got one lamb out there, one sheep out there, one ewe out there that's ready to have babies. She look like She got about 3 or 4 babies up in there. She's so big, and it's like, how? This ain't lambing season. Why is she the only one look like she's about to have a lamb? And it's because her male lamb was the firstborn, and because she lost her lamb at Passover, she's about to give us 2 more already, while the rest of them are gonna wait another 5 months. So the more you eat, the more you get. Man. So he's teaching us how to live his lifestyle through. That's why we're growing bread. That's Pentecost. We got to make 2 loaves of bread. That's all he got to do is tell us to make 2 loaves of bread for the Feast of Weeks. That's farming. That's growing wheat. All kinds of stuff. He's teaching us his life, his roots through his feast days. All we got to do is obey his feast days, and we'll have the lifestyle that he wants us to have. Eventually, it does take time. It does take years. Like I said, the first offering is bread, and I had to make that offering all the way back in 2014. I had nothing else but bread. Or the oil cakes. It talks about that in Leviticus 2. Leviticus chapter 1. And ye shall keep the feast unto the Lord for 7 days in a year. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations. Ye shall celebrate it in the 7th month. So again, we have this feast every single year. 7 days we're expected to do this. And you think about the National Guard, the reserves. They expect them guys to come in and act like soldiers for 2 weeks, Saturday. For the rest of the time, they got like weekend. They got to go in 1 weekend a month. For the rest of the week, for the rest of the month, they can have their hair long. They can have beards. They can do whatever they want because they ain't real soldiers, except 1 weekend out of the month. 1 weekend out of the month, they got to show up down there and act like real soldiers. And then, for 2 weeks out of the year, they got to go and dedicate themselves to be soldiers for 2 whole weeks. Well, that's kind of like us, ain't it? We're expected to be with the Lord on a Sabbath day, but we do what we want to do for the rest of the week. And then we have these 2-week-long celebrations during the year that he expects us to come and spend time with him. Unleavened bread and tabernacles. It ain't too much to ask. And like I said, man's copying this kind of stuff. And the thing about it, he's copying tabernacles all together in the of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a copycat ceremony. It's the knockoff of this. This is what we're supposed to do in the 7th month. The feast of equivalent. In other words, with the guys who led Assyria, leading people astray. That's the golden calf, in other words. But anyway, I can talk about that in other videos. And ye shall keep it a feast unto the Lord for 7 days in a year. It shall be a statute. Now, this is a statute. Inside the law, we learn over in Malachi chapter 4 that the law was given at Moses at Mount Sinai, and it contains the commandments, the judgments, and the statutes. That's how we know what the law is. Let the Bible define the Bible. It says in Malachi chapter 4 that the law was given to Moses at Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai, and it contains the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments. The commandments, of course, is Exodus chapter 20. The 10 commandments. Everybody even heard of the 10 commandments. The judgments, not so much. That's chapter 21 and 22. The judgments is, is a judgment call. If you let me borrow your stuff and I lose it, what's supposed to happen? That kind of stuff. And then you have the statutes in chapter 23. So they're different. They're different. Like I said in one video, you have a law. If comes to America, if somebody wanted to come over here to America, all of our laws. And here in America, we have statutes and we have judgments. Okay? So you come here to America, if you break one of the commandments, we're going to put you in jail. You go on to jail. You steal something, steal taxes, something, you break one of our commandments, one of our what we call laws, you're going to go to jail. the judgments gonna end up costing you money. The judgments is kind of like, penalties and fees and something like that. You're gonna be down there at the courthouse, and now we may be talking about your taxes, but you can go to jail for taxes too. But now it's not so much as going to jail so much as it's gonna penalize you for doing something wrong. Like one of the judgments is that if you are riding down a road and your neighbor has broken down on the side of the road and his animal is under the weight of the cart, you literally supposed to help unload that cart and get that animal away from under there. Even if you don't like the guy, even if you don't know him, you are obligated by the commandment to stop your vehicle and help. Okay, what if you keep going? Are you going to jail? Nope. But it's just gonna cost you. That's a judgment. You're not gonna get the blessings you're supposed to get. And you may have lost needing help and somebody can ride past you one day. That's a judgment. So the commandment gonna send you to jail. Judgment gonna get you penalized. The statute gonna get you kicked out altogether. You break a statute here in America and we're gonna deport you. You going. You're here in 2023, here in 2025. They got it. Yeah, you're gonna get deported. I don't care who you. I ain't just talking about the illegals. I'm talking about anybody. Some people ain't even supposed to be deported. They're American citizens, but they doing stuff that somebody don't like, and they getting sent to whole nother countries. Well, that's the same way with the Bible. You break a statute, you're going to get cut off. You're going to get separated from our Father's people. You're going to get kicked out of the kingdom of heaven. You're not even going to be considered the children of Israel anymore. You're going to get deported. Outside, you're going to be standing outside the gates. That's why these commandments, and that's why he's saying these are the statutes. If you go back to the beginning of this chapter, and we will, we're going to stay in this chapter. He says these are the statutes. So that's what this whole chapter is about. Breaking down the statutes. Then right here, notice, let's see, it shall be a statute forever, and all your generations celebrated in the 7th month. Meaning the 7th month, you can't celebrate it. I always mix them up, Jeroboam and Rehoboam. That's why I didn't call it. But one of them decided that he was actually going to do it in the 8th month. He took the whole tribe of Israel, the 10 tribes. That's why they ended up getting lost in Syria, is because they started doing 8th month celebration. And they didn't do it in the 7th month anymore. They started doing it in the 8th month. And as a result, they got the whole 10 tribes completely severed, cut off. So that's not something that Judah and the called the Jews. You got Israel and the Jews. The Jews, they were conquered. They stayed and they got conquered. The Assyrians, the ones we call they started doing and serving the golden calf. They started doing Thanksgiving instead. That's how the 10 tribes got lost. Putting in plain, blunt English, they stopped doing tabernacles and started doing their Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving of their day. There's a knockoff for the celebration. And we're still doing it today. Then it says in verse 42, ye shall dwell in booths 7 days. Israelites born shall dwell in booths. Now here's the thing. He's saying Israelite born shall dwell in booths. Now I've studied this a long time because I am Israelite born. I am Israelite grafted in too because, even though I was born in Israel, I do have the DNA. I did go into church doctrine and I was raised in a church like everybody else. So I found myself cut off like everybody else. And so I had to get grafted back in like everybody else. Same process. Same thing. No different. But technically speaking, according to this verse, the way I read it, I have to live in a booth because I'm Israelite born. I'm technically required. It's obligatory. Maybe, if I didn't do my DNA, I could play dumb and act like I didn't know. But even so, it's still talking about a different level of keeping the festivals, actually sleeping in booths. He didn't make that caveat earlier when he talked about having the branches and such. So how far we want to take it? Are we supposed to say, you haven't done your DNA, you're not supposed to sleep in a booth? I wouldn't advise you of that. My advice is always to err on the side of caution. In other words, go ahead and do it until you find out that you not get credit for it, and then stop. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Our Father appreciated just like Sabbath days. He wouldn't mind us having more Sabbath days in a week than just feast days too. We always want to do good. Don't let people talk us into doing less than we're capable of. We always want to do better. Especially want to do better. I was talking to my son today, and that he being homeschooled, he never really had to deal with society like I had to, where they make you do evaluations and make you read positive mental attitude books and all of that, bringing goodness, forcing goodness out of you, forcing you to do good. I ain't got that. And the thing about it, that's where we need to be with the Lord. We don't need to be just taking the low road and saying, this is all I got to do, this is all I got to do, and all I got to do, but actually taking the high road. Just don't, as long as we don't teach others, you don't come in and try to teach others to do the same as we, but, because, back to the script, and that's why we're looking here at the verses here. But I think we all should be staying in booths. I think I'm gonna escalate it from I think to I believe that it is necessary that we all stay in booths. There's something going on that we don't know about, just like blowing them trumpets, just like doing a resting on Atonement Day. We don't know everything that's going on. And if we don't get in these booths one way or another, even if it's under the dining room table or out in the car or whatever, just show some type of effort, I think we're missing out. And see, the average person out there who doesn't do this, they don't know what they're missing out. They don't know that they're missing anything. They don't know that they're missing anything at all. It's like, could you imagine going to one of them backwoods communities that nobody heard of with a bottle of vitamins and giving them to one person to start taking vitamins? The rest of the people don't know. They don't know they got vitamin deficiencies. They have no idea they got vitamin deficiencies until they see one person that starts taking these vitamins, and next thing you know, their fingernails is growing out and their hair is growing and different stuff, and somebody started to wonder. Well, that's the same way with these feast days. Until you started doing it right, you don't realize how bad we are. We don't realize how sick we are. Think about it. Everybody in the world is slaves right now. We're all dependent on a dollar bill to feed us. Everybody. No other animal on the planet is like that. Not one other species on the planet has the pay to eat. But humans are in a state of such slavery right now to where we don't. Advantage of it too by giving us handouts, food stamps, handouts and such that distract us. I ain't saying they bad, here's what it is, but they distracting us. If all of a sudden, God forbid it ever happens, but if all of, let's say the food stamp program just stopped and they told us that nobody's going to get food after January 1st, 2026, nobody's ever going to get any food stamps anymore. How many people are going to start preparing? How many people will actually start taking the food stamps that they're getting now and start storing up food and stuff? It's a distraction. And so by keeping that in our face, it's like pacifies us. All of it's like that. All of it's like that. Everything. Lights, television, everything that they're providing us with. It's just to keep us occupied or preoccupied. Once it goes away, and that is the plan, once it goes away, then we're going to reconnect with our phone. Most of us on the planet, our cell phone is the number one thing interfering with our relationship with our Father in heaven. And when them batteries go dead, we're going to discover where he at. Just that easy. And just that easy. That's the plan. That is the plan. That's why there's an earthquake involved. A global to destroy everything. Yep. The day after that, we all get reintroduced to our Father in heaven. Imagine him standing there with a toothpick going, what took y'all so long? He's there anyway, but we distracted by everything. So, but getting back in these booths and doing these feast days is the way back. This is the path back. Think about it. We need atonement to get back, right? Well, this is atonement. You can't boss your way up in it. And you can't just come in and say, Lord gonna take me the way I am. Okay, I'm done sinning in the world. I done used up my old body. I ain't pretty no more. Don't nobody like me no more. So I'm just gonna fall up here and hang out with these people in here and go to heaven. No, you gotta make up for that. And how do you make up for it? Through pain or through charity? But I will argue that afflicting our souls counts as part of this charity and will take away some of the pain. But for those of us who don't afflict, well, we ain't got nothing but pain. We haven't asked him for the pain. When we denying what he's put, do this and I will give you atonement. We like, never mind, we good. Well, don't get atonement. 33 says, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And so this was part of what we're doing. A lot of times in the booths, we'll listen to first 5 books of the Bible during the nighttime. Just let them play at night. But one of the things that we're reminded to teach our kids is that when they left Egypt, before they had to sleep in tents. They were in Egypt. They were living. They were working in Egypt. Some of them even had Egyptian wives and were living Egyptian lives. But then when he came in, after we said, hey, we need some help, they got us enslaved down here. They're trying to have this authoritarian government and lead us to hell with them, and we need some help. He came down and put Moses, who is like the modern day Elijah in the spirit, but he put Moses in charge of all 2 million of us to lead us out into the wilderness. And where do we have to sleep? In tents. In the tent. And so why do we need to teach our kids that? Happening again now. And it's going to happen again when the world goes through this shaking, when the world gets humbled, when we all go through this humbling, when we all go through this exodus. Like I said, the earth is supposed to get humbled through the form of an earthquake. A lot of us going to have to sleep in tents. And that's what we're being prepared for now. That's the plan, is that the economy will get destroyed by an earthquake. And no matter where you're at, it don't necessarily say people are going to have to walk for miles and miles or somewhere else. Where you're at is going to instantly become a wilderness, even if you're in New York City. You look at that, what's that movie? I Am Legend. It's going to become just that kind of a wilderness. Cars and concrete, but it's going to be the wilderness altogether with lions and stuff walking around in the street. Well, at that time, what are we going to expect to do? Just sit out there and die under the elements? You see how hot it is out there, and it ain't planning on getting no cooler no sooner. In booths. And so what about the people who've been doing it? Some of us then tried to make them ourselves. Many of us then got rained out in these tents. We done been in a tent during a feast day and it just rained. Mattresses. We done brought mattresses out the door and put them on the floor of the tent, and now they all wet, all the blankets wet in the middle of the night. Yeah, we're doing that for 10 years now. We done froze out there. We didn't had the wind blow the tent over. Okay, so when that's like basic training. So now when the ship hit the sand and we really got to survive in the tent, we're gonna be standing there with a toothpick in our mouth. Hey, what's wrong with y'all? And that's what he's doing. That's what these scripts are for. That's why I said basic instruction before leaving Earth. Yeah, or basic instruction before the level event. The earthquake is a level event, extinction level event. So we're teaching the kids that, hey, they had to go because it says in another book, ain't always going to tell them about the days of Moses. In the future, we're going to be telling them how Elijah led us out. And again, we have to keep it boost. Hopefully, it's just the Feast of Tabernacles, but it could be longer than that. We don't know. And Moses declared unto the children of Israel the feast of the Lord. So these are the feasts. These are the feasts. Now, I should mention the ones like Purim and Hanukkah. They're not here because they weren't instituted yet back there in Moses' time. Hanukkah wasn't instituted until later on. So was Purim. They was instituted in later books. Both. It's just the only thing is that as far as we're concerned, covenant tile. They're not obligatory, but we do the best, and we do Hanukkah, and we do Purim too. Just wasn't during Moses' time. So, if you guys got anything, hope you did. Sorry I didn't get to the comments. If you do have a question or anything, wait till the video is over and put it down in the other section so I can see your comment and answer your comment. But I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. If you got anything out of it, hit the like button. If you didn't, hit the dislike button. But leave me a comment either way. And shalom. Happy feast days.